bless your. And I'm not saying bless your heart. It is bless mixed with pressure. So there's a story of a man who was asking God for a bigger house. And, he's like, oh, Lord, I need more space. So God provides. He answers the prayer. And then there's this new house, okay? More bedrooms, bigger yard, all the good stuff, right? And a few months later, the same man said, Lord, I'm exhausted. Because there's more rooms to clean, right? More repairs to make, more bills to pay. And what he once called a blessing, now he's seeing it as, it feels like pressure. It feels like a burden almost. And that's when it hit him. God didn't change. It was him. In fact, the blessing didn't change. Just his perspective did. And blessing creates pressure. All right? How many have experienced that even today? So, pressure doesn't mean that something's wrong necessarily. Okay? Sometimes it just means that something is growing. Have you ever seen a tree that can grow out the side of a mountain in rocks? Have you ever seen a plant or a tree grow up in the cracks of the sidewalk and break the sidewalk apart? You wouldn't see it happen in one day. It's just a very slow, gradual process. And in that process, there's this thing called turgor pressure, but the plant is pumping moisture and nutrients and stuff right up in that crack. And it will very slowly over time just keep applying pressure until that crack widens. That's how it can grip into the side of a mountain, find a little crack or a crevice in the rock face, the rock wall, and literally live there and thrive and grow and pull what it needs from the air and so on. But just because you feel pressure, again, doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong. That's what it's like to grow. In fact, what do we call that? There used to be a TV show, Growing Pains, right? And when a kid is growing and their legs are growing and stuff, sometimes they feel restless and stuff at night. Sometimes they feel their legs aching and so on because their bones are lengthening. It's stretching their muscles taut. And when we look at Luke 12:48, it says, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. So, blessing always comes with responsibility. Blessing always comes with responsibility, right? Myron Golden, he often talks about how people pray for increase, but they didn't prepare for the responsibility. So he says, people want 7-figure income with 5-figure habits. We pray, Lord, bless me. God says, all right, but can you manage it? So, because blessing doesn't just raise income, it raises expectation. Our prayers are often full of requests like, Lord, help me, and, provide for this need. Maybe there's a door that you need to be open, and you're asking the Lord to open that door for you. Then God answers. Slowly, our prayer requests become praise reports, but then too often those praise reports become the next batch of prayer requests. Okay? Because if we're not careful, those praise reports become pressure points. And it's possible, like, that's kind of a dangerous thing if we don't keep the perspective to realize I am living surrounded by answers to prayer. Because we'll look at it like everything around us is just a burden instead of a blessing. And if something, and I'll just say this on a matter of stewardship, if you're looking at this and this warehouse full of stuff that you have, or these items, and you can't see it as anything other than a burden, maybe it actually is. Maybe you're not supposed to be the Dead Sea and everything comes in and stays there. Maybe you're meant to be like a lake that is a holding area for a while, and then you pass it along to where it will be a blessing, to whom it will be a blessing to. Okay? At that point, sure, we're not grumbling about lack anymore. Are we grumbling about abundance? Imagine if you took somebody, we hear stories about people from third world countries, and there they are, and they're like finding tape and strips of cellophane or whatever, and flat, like empty bottles of, pop bottles, flattening them, putting them on their feet for shoes. Okay? And meanwhile, we have 17 pairs of shoes in our closet, and we can't figure out which one we want to wear. We're like, why is this so hard? I'm so irritated that I can't. And that doesn't mean you can't have shoes, okay? But keep some perspective about it and figure out what's the appropriate amount too, because maybe you need to send some of your shoes to other people that they will be a blessing to. Okay? So, are we grumbling in growth? That's a little bit, convicting. But if you have that perspective to realize that there's a lot to be thankful for, then it's like your whole day will get better. I was listening to an audiobook, and good for the author. She was citing lots of different studies and articles and other authors and so on. And one of the things that she was mentioning is that when you, I'm actually trying to think of who I was listening to, because I listened to several different people and different podcasts and so on. So it was one of them, we'll say. But when you focus on seeking out happiness, you end up more successful and more productive. When you focus on seeking out success and productivity, you hit a threshold where you can't get happier. So the interesting thing is, if you're seeking out the happiness side of it, and as Christians, we're going to think of this as joy, focusing on fulfillment, focusing on the purpose that God has for you, the passion that He's given you, the mission that He's called you in, then you will be able to continually get more and more and more successful. On the other hand, if you set your sights on success, you'll hit a threshold where you can't get you stop being happy. That won't be a measurable growth factor for you. You'll actually get less and less happy the more successful you get. And when I heard that, and forgive me if I'm probably butchering it just slightly how that was told, but when I heard that really hit me, because it's like, yeah, I've experienced that in my life. Sometimes I've focused on, as they say, climbing the corporate ladder or the rat race, and to the detriment of my own health or well-being or my family's. And then I've come to realize, whoa, that's not worth it. On the other hand, if you can focus on the things that God made important in your life, and like I've said before, be careful not to set your sights on only one vertical or only focus on one stat that you're measuring, and you're not thinking about the holistic approach that God's put in your life. That's when you can start to completely miss out, and one of your scores in these different categories just dips down to 0 without you even paying attention, or goes into the red. And I've experienced that. Okay. So this whole idea, grumbling about growth, right? Israel didn't really complain the same way in Egypt as they complained after their deliverance. Okay? It was just kind of like they were in an uncomfortable comfort zone. They were used to being the type of slaves and victims that they were, so they didn't complain. Then the moment that advancement was offered to them and provided for them. Think about it. They were free. They were fed too. They weren't trying to have to scrounge through the desert. God met their needs. And he protected them. I mean, there was a pillar of fire or a cloud. He was going before them. He was leading them. He was telling them the timing, the placement, everything. But they were not focused on that provision, were they? They weren't thinking of it as a blessing at that point. So they still said, why is this so hard? So the Hebrew word blessing, barak, means to bestow favor. Okay? And you can almost think about it like, you ever seen on a movie where a king will knight somebody and they'll kind of like kneel down and then they dub them Sir Knight. And that blessing wasn't actually meant to make us like stand taller, but to actually kneel more, deeper in gratitude. That's bestowed upon us, that blessing. You don't walk up to King and be like, bless me indeed. That was God as we kneel. And in those moments where we ask, the time that we ask was us kneeling. Now we had the boldness to come to him as our Father, and that was all good. And he answered. That answer was either underway and on its way to us, or the answer was no in some cases, or wait, right? I don't think it's ever maybe. I say that to kids. I'm like, it kind of depends on your behavior. Come talk to me again after you've handled X, Y, Z. Okay. Think about this. We pray, Lord, enlarge my territory. Does that sound familiar, right? Then God does. And then we say, why am I so tired? It's like praying for muscles and then being shocked when weights appear. Think about that. We have a part to play in that. So, you didn't ask for ease, you asked for increase. They kind of rhyme. Let's talk about inheritance versus entitlement. So, inheritance says, this was given, I must steward it. Okay? Entitlement says, I deserve this. God owes me. Right? Inheritance produces gratitude, humility, stewardship. Entitlement produces frustration, comparison, resentment. So the Greek word for grace, charis, something, the pronunciation there, but it's a gift freely given. And think about that. Grace is never earned. It's impossible for it to be earned. Grace is never owed. God doesn't owe us grace. Now we know who he is and what he does and how his nature is. And he is gracious. But not because he owed us anything. Rather, we owe him everything. The moment that grace feels owed, gratitude dies. If we let it come to us, it's like, well, he has to be gracious to us. Even though that's partially true, the attitude inside of us is not healthy, if that's how we're thinking. You prayed for rain, God sent a flood. You asked for growth, he raised the mud. Roots go deeper before fruit is seen. Pressure's proof of what God means. When we are in this process of growing, like a plant, imagine a seed, you put it down in the ground. And if you've watched time-lapse photography, I love to watch this. You can see it and it pushes its way out of the seed first, and then it starts to like emerge out of the ground, and then you just see the leaves start to come out. And I don't know why, but I feel like I have a similar feeling to when you have like a little baby and you just adore them. It's like a cute little adorable little thing when you see the little plant growing like that, right? I can't help but think that God has maybe a similar sensation to us because he made all of us grow that way. We start in a helpless state. We start in a humble state, fragile. And I think the more that we can stay humble and realize that we are still fragile, even when we think we're big and tough, then that allows us, it unlocks the growth. And it keeps us from grumbling in that growth. So in the military, higher rank doesn't mean less pressure. Okay? It means more responsibility. You know, privates carry packs. Maybe they got like 45 pound rucksack. Generals carry people. So promotion doesn't remove pressure, it redefines it. And it's the same in the kingdom. So I want to say this blessure, and now maybe you understand the the little play on words that I made there. This blessure can be turned into sure blessed. Okay? So if we stop saying, yeah, I'm blessed, sure, but stressed along with it, and we focus on start declaring, I am sure blessed. The moment you start to feel that, you realize you're complaining about first world problems, as they say. Like there's lots of little videos that you can spin around for a while. The moment you realize you're complaining about stuff that people in other countries would never complain about, like, why can't I get the volume button to work on my $1,000 cell phone? Think about that. Where there's people just trying to figure out how they're going to have water for the day. But if we can swap that around, I love my son coined this phrase, and I've quoted this a couple times. We'd be working together through some different seasons, and sometimes he would be sitting there grinding at whatever learning task he was doing or whatever, any type of grind work. And he would just go, my life is so easy. And I love that he did that. I would crack up every time because it really puts things in perspective. Here I am sitting at a computer complaining about, this has eye strain, or, I have to type so much. But like, come on. Are you breaking rocks? Are you digging ditches? Are you shoveling and mucking out stalls and pens and stuff? There's dirtier jobs for sure. Okay. Yes. My life is so easy. It's not because it's easy, though. It's really because God is faithful. And if we can remember that, then that'll help us to keep the perspective to not grumble in the growth. We can appreciate what we have, and we cannot hang on to the stuff that's weighing us down, so to speak. If it's not part of the mission anymore, maybe it was for a season. Maybe it's time to move that along. And with respect to everybody who struggles with it, haven't we all seen TV shows about hoarders and stuff? And they can't let go of that, newspaper from 5 or 35 years ago. And it's just stacks of it or something. Just as a random example like I've seen on a movie. But realistically, will we ever look at that again? I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, boy, what if a parent, and I've been a parent for many years, what if a parent was to hang on to the first Band-Aid that their kid ever scraped their knee? And the first popsicle stick that they ever, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of firsts, and you just have like lots of scrapbooks full of all sorts of, the first diaper? How far are we going to go with this? We don't ever, we have like the socks and the things like that. And it's nothing wrong with keeping a little bit here and there. But think about it. There comes a certain point where attempting to hang on to those memories becomes a burden. And I recommend swap out for a photograph. Put it in a photo album or something, okay? But But that's just one little example that comes to mind on how sometimes we take and things that are a blessing in one season become a burden in another season. And if you can't find it if you can't find some way to have gratitude for it and to put it to use, double check whether you're still supposed to have that or not. You know? And I've been guilty of hanging on to a whole bunch of cell phones that I used to have, and I'm like, oh, I'll use them for the kids or something. But if you're not, should you keep it? You know, I guess it depends on how big your warehouse is. Every single utility drawer full of all kinds of junk. Here's an acronym for us. Remember I said let's turn bless sure into sure blessed? Okay? So here is our SURE and the BLESSED. Okay. You're welcome to write this down, put it in your notes, record it, whatever. And this will be on the recording here. So the first S is for steward, don't squander. Steward, don't squander. U. Understand growth costs something. There will be a certain amount of pressure that you take on in stepping into a new role. Everybody wants the raise that comes with the promotion, but what about the responsibilities? Right? Remain grateful. And that's part of the biggest thing that's going to help you to not get into this paradigm that makes you complain about first world problems while ignoring third world problems not too far from home. Remain grateful. E. Expect pressure with the promotion. Just expect it. If you know that it's going to cost something, like we just said, understand growth costs something, then expect the pressure with the promotion. B. Bow before boasting. So that whole idea about that blessing is coordinated with like the meaning of that word is the same as like kneeling down and receiving that knightship. And when you do, you can't actually move up in that new promotion and that new blessing and that new expansion and growth without humbling yourself first and then staying humble. Lean on God, not entitlement. Be careful to think any type of thought that's anything like, oh, God owes me. He has to do this. He'll for sure take care of me. But not because he owes you, but because he's good. He's a good, good father, right? So that's why I say lean on God and not a formula of entitlement. That'll put your heart in the wrong place and he can't bless you at that point. Embrace responsibility. So if God is putting responsibilities in your life, say thank you. Why? Because when you encounter various types of trials and challenges and stuff, you're being upgraded. You're being promoted. And yeah, it's true. Higher levels, bigger devils, as they say. You're going to have some different stuff to deal with. Otherwise, you'd be sitting there like all the other people in the world complaining, same stuff, different day. Stay teachable. So our first S in blessed is stay teachable. Because if God is putting something new into your life, he's going to grow you. He's going to expand you. He is going to enlarge your borders. And then you're going to have new territory that you're going to have to manage. The next S is serve others. Think about it. God doesn't bless us just for our own self. He blesses, empowers, equips us so that we can be his hands and feet to serve the entire world. We've got a mission here. And yes, part of that mission is pleasing him by us learning, growing, expanding, figuring things out. He enjoys that, okay? Just like a parent would their kid. But when he equips us and gives us tools, resources, connections, and networks and stuff, he gave us that platform for a reason. Think about this. What if you knew of a very famous actor, actress that quietly for 30 years was a Christian behind the scenes, but you would have never known it in the celebrity space? It would feel a little bit incongruent, like, wait, you had all this fame and fortune and you kept it a secret that you were a Christian. And no judgment, but like it would strike you as like, why didn't you take the opportunity when you had all these people looking at you to lift up the name of the Lord? it just wouldn't seem quite right for those of us that have that kind of conviction to be like, boy, if I had that. So let's not judge, but when you find yourself in the position of some kind of platform, not all of us are going to be like quote unquote celebrities or something, right? But when you find that you have a platform and realize everywhere you are, you have a platform. Okay, but as you have your platform, are you using it? Are you using your talent, your resources, your opportunities to honor God? Okay, so serve others. And as you do all those right things, entrust the outcome to God. Okay, this whole blesser thing it's really our perspective, where we feel like these blessings that are coming at us, it's like, oh, this is more than I can handle. But what did God say? See if I don't pour out a blessing more than you can handle. We're like, I wish you would. And he's like, maybe I will. And then were we ready? So in the whole process, declare his goodness. That final D is declare his goodness. You know, in the midst of having things pulled away from us, thrown upon us, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So let me ask you a question. What did you once pray for that you now have as like your prayer requests on how to deal with this stress, and you're possibly complaining about it? So what blessings is God asking you to steward, not to resent? Blessing isn't meant to crush you, not in a destructive sort of way, but more in like a wine press sort of way, to bring out the best in you. You ever seen them smashing grapes or smashing tomatoes to get the best quality? They're stepping on it. And in that process, you know, if you were a grape or a tomato, you're probably not enjoying it, okay? But the end result is worth it. And if you see the whole process as a beautiful thing, then you can enjoy it. You know, you might remember that the Lord told us in Scripture that he's the potter and we're the clay. If we embrace him shaping and molding and pounding and then slogging us with water and then kneading us, okay? Or if you think of like kneading bread, I mean, there's a beautiful result at the end. So the challenges that we feel now, the blesser, I encourage all of us, exhort us, or throw the gauntlet out there. Let's all start saying, I'm sure blessed. I'm sure blessed. My life is so easy. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. That's good.
Yeah.
So let's say a little prayer here. I'm going to say a little prayer, and let's go out. And this is a challenge. I want you at some point today, hopefully at some point in the future, I want you to just say, I'm sure blessed. I'm sure blessed. Okay? Lord, forgive us for complaining. And we complain about the stuff that we once prayed for, we were desperate for, we were begging you for. Help us to steward the blessings that you give us with gratitude. You know, you're growing our character and our capacity, and help us to keep that perspective. Help us to see this pressure that we feel as preparation. That you've got a reason for it, and you're bringing us to a newer, higher, better place. And sometimes, on the way to the palace, we're going to have to go through the prison, so to speak. That doesn't sound fun. But we want to have this attitude of inheritance, not entitlement, because you've made us joint heirs, and we're excited for all the good things that you're doing through us. And we don't, what soldier serves without the one that enlisted them providing for their needs? So we know you're taking care of us, and we know that the challenges and the missions that you take us through are for a bigger purpose, and they're blessing and benefiting us and those that you've called us as a mission to help and to heal and to serve. Thank you for that, Lord. And so, Lord, I just pray for everybody here, everybody under the sound of my voice, that we would keep you first in all we're doing, keep that perspective of gratitude. And I'm asking for healing. I'm asking for deliverance. I'm asking for discipleship for all the households that we represent, all of our loved ones. I know that we're not going to live a fulfilled life until we are right in the middle of the calling that you have for us. And we can't even acknowledge that we're in the middle of that calling if we don't have gratitude, because we're sitting here entitled and assuming and thinking and demanding like little brats more stuff from you. And we can't even appreciate what we have. So forgive us. Thank you for all you do. And we trust you with our future and the future of our loved ones. We're looking forward to what you have in store. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Fill us, Spirit.